in your dreams, right?
Out of your budget. The words came sharp, followed by laughter that echoed through the bright showroom. James froze where he stood, eyes locked on the black Mercedes G-Wagon gleaming under the lights. He hadn't touched it, hadn't even leaned close. He'd only asked quietly, "How much is this one?" But that's all it took. The salesman, a tall white guy in a tight suit with slick back hair and a fake grin, grinned wider, enjoying the audience forming around the scene. "Yeah, man, that one's a bit out of your budget. We got some pre-owned models in the back, though, might fit better." A few heads turned from across the floor. Someone chuckled behind a desk. James stood still, calm. His face didn't move, but inside, that quiet sting he'd felt so many times in life settled in again, the kind that wasn't about money but about respect. He looked at the price tag on the windshield. "I didn't ask if I could afford it," he said softly. "I asked what it costs." The salesman's grin grew wider, arrogance pouring off him. "It's almost 200 grand, sir. 200. With taxes and upgrades, you're looking a little over 215. He crossed his arms. "But hey, I can show you a C-Class. Way more affordable. Still Mercedes, still luxury." The laughter came again, quieter this time but sharper. Someone in the back whispered, "Man, I swear, they just walk in for photos." And that's when another voice broke the tension. "Brian, ease up," said a second salesman. He was older, mid-40s maybe, black, with calm eyes and a soft voice that carried a quiet strength. His name tag read Marcus. He looked at James, nodded politely, and said, "Sir, if you like, I can get you some info on that model." Brian turned his head with a smirk. "Come on, Marcus. We both know he's not buying a G-Wagon today." Marcus's voice stayed even. "Doesn't matter. You treat everyone like they might." For a moment, the laughter stopped. James looked at Marcus, meeting his eyes. There was understanding there, a silent kind of respect. But Brian, the slick-haired one, couldn't leave it alone. "I'm just saying, man, let's be real. This car's not exactly starter level, you know?" He chuckled, turning back to his tablet. "You're not trying to waste anyone's time, are you?" James exhaled slowly. Then he smiled, not the kind of smile you give when you're amused, but the one you wear when you've already decided something inside. "You know," he said quietly, "I worked my whole life to stand in a place like this and not have to prove myself. But I guess some people will always see what they want." Brian laughed again. "Hey, don't take it personal, man. I'm just being honest." Marcus shot him a look, cold, disappointed, but stayed silent. James nodded slowly, turned to Marcus, and said, "Thank you, sir. You were respectful. That means more than you think." Then, to Brian, he added, "You said I can't afford it. You're probably right today." Brian smirked. "See? I like that attitude. Keep dreaming, man." James's voice dropped low. "No, not dreaming. Planning." He turned and walked toward the door. Brian called after him, still laughing. "All right then, when that Powerball hits, you come see me. Big man. I'll get you that G-Wagon with a bow on it." The glass door closed behind James. Outside, the late afternoon sun was blinding. He paused by his old Toyota Camry, the one he'd driven for 15 years. He didn't even care what it looked like. He just leaned on the hood, staring back at the dealership through the glass. Inside, Brian was still laughing, waving his hands as if reenacting the moment for the others. Marcus just shook his head, disgusted, before quietly walking away toward the service department. James could feel the heat from the hood, the vibration of anger and pride fighting inside him. But then his phone buzzed. Email, offer accepted. He opened it. It was from his lawyer. The ink wasn't even dry yet on the deal. His company had just finalized the purchase of 3 commercial properties, including a small dealership building across town. And that was only the start. He looked up again at the Mercedes sign, glinting in the sun. "Out of my budget," he whispered, shaking his head with a small smile. Then he got in his car, started the engine, and said under his breath, "I'll be back for that dealership. Not for the car, for the building." As he drove off, the camera of life panned upward, from his old Camry disappearing down the road to a reflection of the Mercedes logo shimmering in the showroom glass. Inside, Marcus stood by the G-Wagon, looking out the window. He didn't smile. He just watched the man drive away, whispering softly, "Something tells me we're going to see him again." For weeks after that day, James couldn't shake the sound of laughter in that dealership. He wasn't angry anymore, not in the way most people get angry. It was deeper, quieter, the kind that turns pain into fuel. Every morning when he woke up before sunrise, he remembered that look on Brian's face, smug, sure of himself, the kind of man who thought the world had already been divided into who has and who serves. And James was done being put in that second category. He'd built his construction company from scratch, starting with one pickup truck and a dream. For 15 years, he laid concrete, managed crews, and slowly bought property whenever he could afford it. But that moment, being laughed at in public for simply asking a price, it lit something in him he didn't even know still existed. So he doubled down. Every deal, every project, every meeting. He attacked it with precision and focus. While others partied, he invested. While others complained, he learned. Within 2 years, his company had expanded across Georgia. By the third year, he had investments in real estate, trucking, and auto imports. And by the fourth year, when his accountant asked, "James, do you realize how much liquid cash you have?" He just smiled and said, "Enough to buy a G-Wagon dealership." But he didn't rush. He waited, because patience was his secret weapon. Meanwhile, back at Mercedes-Benz of Brookhaven, life went on, but not for everyone equally. Brian, the slick-haired salesman, had gotten 3 promotions. His numbers weren't great, but he knew how to talk his way around management. Marcus, on the other hand, was still stuck. 14 years at the company, never late, always respectful, always helping younger staff who didn't even thank him. But somehow, every time a promotion came up, it went to someone else. Once, when Marcus gently asked the manager why, he got a shrug. "You're a good guy, Marcus, but you're, how do I say this, more of a floor man. We need someone who can really connect with our luxury clientele." He knew what that meant. He'd heard it his whole life. So he stayed quiet, kept working, kept being the decent man he was, even when others weren't. And sometimes, when he stood next to that same black G-Wagon, he remembered the man who'd asked the price, the one who'd walked out with dignity after being mocked. He wondered what happened to him. 5 years passed. The dealership had changed owners twice. Business wasn't what it used to be. Online sales were eating away at foot traffic. Corporate started quietly looking for buyers, someone with money, someone local, someone who could rebuild the brand. And one crisp Monday morning, the staff got an email. New ownership pending, details to follow. Meeting scheduled Friday. Brian read it aloud, smirking. Great, another new boss. Let's hope they're not some tightwad. Marcus didn't say anything. He just sipped his coffee and got back to his paperwork. Friday came. The staff gathered near the showroom, curious, restless. A silver SUV pulled up outside, but not a Mercedes. It was a Cadillac Escalade, tinted windows, smooth and spotless. Out stepped a man in a navy suit, carrying nothing but calm confidence. For a second, Marcus thought he recognized the face, but his mind refused to believe it. Then the man walked in, and the sunlight caught him just right. James Parker. He looked different now. Sharper, stronger, but the same steady eyes. The same quiet dignity. Brian squinted, whispering, "No way. That's that guy from years ago." James shook hands with the regional rep, then turned to the staff. "Morning, everyone. My name's James Parker. As of today, I'm a new owner of this dealership." The room froze. Brian's smirk vanished. Marcus stood motionless, his heart pounding. James scanned the faces slowly, his expression calm, almost unreadable. "I'm here because I believe in second chances, for people and for places. This dealership lost its soul somewhere along the way. I plan to bring it back." He walked toward the G-Wagon on display, the same model though newer, and rested his hand on the hood. "This was the first car I ever asked about in here. I remember the answer I got." He smiled faintly. Let's just say it wasn't very professional. Brian looked down at his shoes. James continued, "I was told it was out of my budget, that I should look in the used section." He looked directly at Brian now, who turned pale. "But I learned something that day. That disrespect says more about a man's character than about his customer's wallet." Silence filled the room. Then he looked over at Marcus. Their eyes met. Marcus still couldn't move, his throat tight. James smiled softly. "But I also met one man here who treated me with dignity when no one else did." He paused, letting the weight of that sentence land. "And I never forgot that." Marcus blinked, disbelief washing over him. James turned to the HR manager and said clearly, "Marcus, he's now the new general sales manager of this dealership." Gasps. A few whispered, "What?" from the floor. Brian's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marcus finally spoke, voice trembling slightly. Sir, I don't even know what to say. James walked up to him, extended his hand, and said, You already said it years ago, when you told that man to treat everyone with respect. That was enough. Marcus shook his hand, eyes moist. Thank you. Thank you for remembering. James smiled. People remember pain, but they never forget kindness. For the rest of the day, people buzzed with shock. Brian avoided eye contact. Rumors spread that he was being let go. Though James hadn't said a word yet, Marcus worked late that night, helping close up, still not believing what had happened. He passed by James's office on his way out, saw the lights on, and knocked softly. Come in, James said. Marcus stepped inside. Sir, I just want to say again, I appreciate this more than you know. After all these years, James looked up from a stack of papers, smiled, and said, I didn't do it out of pity, Marcus. I did it because you earned it. You kept your dignity in a place that didn't always deserve it. Marcus nodded, quiet for a moment. You know, I used to tell myself maybe that man who walked out that day, maybe he'd show them all one day. Guess I was right. James chuckled softly. You were? Then his face turned thoughtful. But this isn't about revenge. It's about teaching people what real respect looks like. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in years, he felt seen. That night, after everyone left, James walked alone across the empty showroom floor. The G-Wagon sat in the middle, lights reflecting off its flawless surface. He ran his hand along the side of it, just like he had that first day. But this time, there was no salesman laughing. No whispers. Just silence and peace. He looked out the front glass where his old Camry had once been parked and whispered, Thank you for not breaking that day. It had been 3 weeks since James took ownership of the dealership, and already the place felt different. Customers were greeted with warmth. The laughter that used to sound sharp and mocking was now the kind that came from genuine connection. Marcus's leadership had changed everything. Calm, fair, professional. And for the first time in years, staff actually smiled at work. But there was one person who didn't. Brian. He came in every day, quieter than usual, keeping his head down. He hadn't been fired. James never mentioned it. But everyone knew the silence around him meant something deeper. He spent most of his days staring at his desk, replaying that day in his head. The way he laughed, the way he judged, the way Marcus looked at him afterward. He'd been given time, and time has a way of breaking down arrogance. One late Friday evening, James stayed behind again, reviewing papers in his office. The sound of light footsteps broke the silence. Brian stood in the doorway. Mr. Parker, he said quietly. James looked up. Come in. Brian hesitated, then stepped forward. I wanted to say something. James nodded slowly. Go ahead. Brian took a deep breath, struggling to find words. You probably don't remember me. I was here that day, the one who said those things. James didn't say anything. He just looked at him, calm, patient. Brian continued, his voice shaky now. I was stupid, arrogant. I don't even know what I thought. I guess I thought people looked like their wallets. You walked in and he sighed, eyes down. I treated you like you were less. Silence filled the room. James leaned back in his chair. Do you regret what you said, Brian? Brian nodded. Every single day. James looked at him for a long time. Then he said, Good, because regret is what wakes up the part of us that still has a conscience. Brian's eyes lifted. I don't expect forgiveness, sir. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. James stood slowly, walked around the desk, and extended his hand. Brian blinked in disbelief. You're shaking my hand? James smiled faintly. You were a part of my story. Without you, maybe I wouldn't have pushed as hard. Life has a way of turning pain into purpose, if you let it. Brian's eyes watered. Thank you, sir. James nodded. Don't thank me. Just do better than yesterday. That's all any of us can do. That night, after everyone left, Marcus found James standing outside, looking up at the dealership sign glowing against the dark sky. Still feels unreal, huh? Marcus said. James smiled softly. Yeah, you ever think about how strange life is? One day you're being laughed out of a place like this, and one day you're holding the keys to it. Marcus chuckled. You earned it. James turned to him, serious now. No, Marcus, we earned it. You believed when no one else did. And for that, he reached into his jacket pocket and handed Marcus an envelope. Marcus opened it and froze. James, this is... Your promotion letter? James said, smiling. You're the new general manager. Marcus's voice trembled. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep treating people right. That's all. Marcus wiped his eyes. You have my word. They stood in silence for a moment, the night calm around them. James looked back at the glowing Mercedes logo. You know, Marcus, when they laughed that day, it hurt. Not because of the words, but because of what it meant. That people still look at others and decide their worth in 5 seconds. He sighed. But I realized something. You don't fight hate with hate. You outgrow it. You outshine it. You build so high that they have to look up to see you. Marcus smiled, tears in his eyes. That's powerful. James smiled too. No, that's life. The next morning, the dealership opened under a new slogan painted on the glass doors. Respect is a real luxury. Customers noticed. Employees felt it. The whole town started talking. Not about cars, but about the story behind those doors. A story of grace, of redemption, of a man who refused to let someone's ignorance define his destiny. If you're watching this right now, remember this. People may laugh at your dreams. They may doubt you, underestimate you, or even try to break you. But your worth isn't determined by their opinion. It's proven by your persistence. And when you finally rise, do it with humility, because true power isn't about revenge. It's about compassion. Tell me, have you ever faced a situation where someone judged you or doubted your worth? Write it down in the comments below. I want to read your story. Let's talk about it. And if this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because your support helps us keep telling stories that remind the world what respect really means. Subscribe to Residential Stories, where every story has a soul.